Now, Nizam al-Mulk's headache was not primarily a theological headache, but a simple one of political survival. He wanted to find a way of claiming religious legitimacy for himself that would not alienate any very substantial section of the population that he ruled, to the extent that it would provoke a rebellion and make the state ungovernable. Earlier, Khalifas had experimented with different options. Famously, the Abbasid Caliph al-Ma'mun had enforced the Mu'tazilite doctrine. This was why Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal was imprisoned and flogged for refusing to accept the Mu'tazilite idea that the Quran is somehow created in time rather than always having been in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Other Seljuks and Abbasids had explored other possibilities, substantial flirtations with Ja'fari Shi'ism for a while, for instance. But somehow nothing seemed to fit the bill, because whenever one of the Khalifas sided with a particular side, the opposite side would take umbrage and political instability would result. And there were riots in the Seljuk cities in which substantial numbers of the population were simply killed, riots between different Muslim orientations. So this is the problem that Nizam al-Mulk is facing, and he's one of the great pragmatists of Islamic history. He's not ultimately, I think, concerned with truth so much as with finding a way of ruling this endlessly divided demography. And Imam Al-Ghazali comes, and still in his late 20s, I think, and he comes to Nizam al-Mulk's court, which is in a kind of camp outside Baghdad. And he preaches before Nizam al-Mulk, and Nizam al-Mulk is impressed and immediately appoints him as professor of one of his madrasas. Now, the Seljuk political agenda at this time is to look around for a version of Islam that will be as mainstream, middle of the road as possible, that will be acquiesced in by hardline scriptural literalists, and also satisfy mystics and philosophically minded people. In other words, to include as many people as possible and to exclude as few people as possible. So Nizam al-Mulk is already engaged in a program of pushing a particular reading of Islam, which he does by patronizing certain ulama and by paying for the construction of very substantial, prestigious new madrasas, which, modestly enough, he calls Nizamiya, which he builds in Baghdad, Central Asia, and 6 or 7 towns, significant towns in his domains which he wants to control intellectually.